Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is staying home and is in good health. My today's guest is Stuart Pollington, an SEO and link building expert. He has been doing SEO and link building for a long time. Stuart is the managing director at Smart Traffic Australia and Evo Digital Australia. Hello, Stuart. How is it going?
It's good, thank you. How are you doing?
Well, doing well, man. Staying home like everybody else, but yeah,
Good,
doing well.
good.
Lucky to be in
Surviving.
the industry we are in. We're still managing to work from home.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's very disruptive for a lot of businesses. For businesses like ours, we can pretty much do everything remotely. But it obviously comes down to what your customers can do, doesn't it? And what they
Oh,
and their individual circumstances. Yeah.
no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, even like a lot of businesses, have been hit, which obviously a lot of agencies are getting hit, but still, we're lucky to at least have some businesses which, are looking for transition and, luckily
Mm.
the teams are working from home. But yeah, I mean, hope this all gets over soon.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure it will. It'll be a different when it finishes. But yeah, those that kind of plan ahead and focus on marketing and everything else now will reap the benefits afterwards, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Stuart, thank you for taking out time and for doing this. It would be great if you could introduce yourself for our viewers and about your company and what you do.
Okay, well, my name's Stuart Pollington again. I'm the managing director and owner of Smart Traffic in Australia, Evo Digital in Australia, and Smart Digital Group in Thailand. Smart Traffic focuses on direct digital marketing services, SEO, Google Ads, social media marketing directly to clients in Australia and New Zealand. We also white label some of our services to agencies in Australia and New Zealand. Evo Digital is more of an agency brand where we white label and deliver a couple of thousand links a month, as well as content for blog posts and articles and on-site. And then Smart Digital in Thailand is very similar to Smart Traffic. We're an end-to-end digital marketing agency delivering SEO, Google Ads, social media marketing, web builds, etc., directly to the end user, the client.
Great. So, Stuart, I mean, talking about managing, different brands. So, what is your like? How does your overall team size look like?
Um, we have about in the office maybe 20, well, normally in the office, maybe about 22 staff. And then around the world, we have a team of maybe 15 content writers and maybe another 10 to 15 people we work with on a daily basis, but not full time doing different tasks for us.
Right. Any softwares you use since you already are used to working with remote teams? Any softwares you would suggest? Because I think now a lot of
Yeah.
agencies would shift working remote.
Okay, so we used Salesforce a long time ago, and maybe a decade ago. And off the back of Salesforce, we built our own CRM, and we actually have our own CRM where we put the work in. It spreads it out to everyone who needs to work on it. It decides when the due date is. They can upload it. So we actually still manage a lot of our processes through our own inbuilt system. That said, we do use Skype, we do use Dropbox, we use Google Docs, we use Stack. There are a few different things we do use, but
Mhm.
mainly we actually have our own in-house CRM that we've built up over the years to allow us to communicate between our account managers and technical and delivery, our agency partners and our clients.
And so right now you're just using that system for your own self. No plans of maybe rolling it out as a SaaS product.
It's very bespoke almost to what we do. I mean, that would be almost entirely different business itself. I mean, at the time we looked for an off-the-shelf solution, and nothing really did exactly what we wanted, which is why we invested the time and effort into building it ourselves. Whether it would be useful to other agencies, I'm not sure. I mean, there are some good tools out there that already pull in analytics reports and allow you to schedule things, and it's a whole different business concept. I mean, ours is just tweaked and developed. It works for how we do it, maybe not necessarily how everyone else does it. Yeah.
No, the reason I
But
told
maybe, who knows?
Yeah,
Who
yeah. The
knows?
reason I told you, I mean, let's sometime chat about it because the reason I told you this is, when we started off, we also started building a system for our own selves. And we realized, I mean, the software is out there. A lot of them
Mm.
are not built for agencies. So let's say you have a
Yeah.
project management tool. You need to have a separate project for communicating with the client and the backend team. You can't have it at one place. Then you need to have a separate CRM or a system for sales. So we had developed a system for our own selves, but based on the research we have seen, even we are planning to launch it as a SaaS. So maybe it might be a good you know thought to look at.
No, of course, yeah. I mean, we found when we've spoken to agencies ourselves, because we do a lot of white label work ourselves, and some agencies are happy to work with our process, and others have their own way of doing things, from email, Excel, Skype, Dropbox, Google Drive. So based on that, it was kind of like, it works for what we do, but we're not necessarily going to get everybody else to follow the way we do it. So, we're probably all, yourself included, you're probably looking at a website page and optimizing it similarly to how we do it. You're probably doing your outreach similar to how we do it. But getting everyone to book it in and organize it the same way is not necessarily the way people work. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, I'd definitely be interested in talking about it. It's just one of those difficulties, not every agency is set up the same way, are they? And they have different ways of doing things and different priorities.
Right, right. So what is more fun, working with agencies or clients?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I mean, I enjoy working with agencies because you're talking to like-minded individuals. You get on a call with them, and pretty quickly you will both understand what you're talking about. You can learn things from agencies. They can learn things from us. It's a sign-off, if you like, of our product and service, because if an agency buys from us or pays us to do something, it means that they believe in what we're doing is right and it's going to work, which can be obviously difficult in SEO. I'm sure you've been around long enough to know that there are people that do it really well, and there are people that maybe cut corners. So having agencies on is kind of like a big tick for ourselves. It's a big sign off that these agencies around the world believe in what we're doing. So I like that aspect of it. But at the same time, with an agency, you're stuck with how they present to their clients and their customers, and how they explain how a service works, and why this is important and why this isn't. And that's where it's good talking to an end user or a client or a customer directly, because you can explain everything to them. This is why we're doing this. This is why it takes this long. This is why this is quick. This is why this takes longer. So you miss that communication to the end user, if that makes sense. So pros and cons for both,
Yeah, I sometimes feel it's just like having your wife or girlfriend in the same company, when you're working with
Yeah.
agencies.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I enjoy both. To answer the question, I enjoy both.
Yeah. So Stuart, how have you seen link building change over the years?
The value of a link, in my opinion, link building, it has obviously changed, but I have always looked at SEO as like three core fundamentals. That is your on-site, making sure that your site is issue free, that Google can crawl it, it hasn't got errors, and it's optimized. Then it's your content. Do you have good content? Are you an authority? Does Google like it? Do your users find it engaging and interesting? And then the third part is link building, getting other sites to link to you, as, if you like, as a vote of confidence. And obviously over time, the strengths and the weaknesses of links have changed, and Google have decided that we like this type of link more than this link, and some certain link strategies have changed over time. But generally, the three core fundamentals of SEO are still there: on-site content and link building.
Right. So you talked about the core fundamentals, where I think a lot of focus always is on, the main audit, which happens initially.
Yes. Yeah.
So how is your process, when you start off the SEO process, how does your first, steps look like?
Okay. Well, when we engage in a client campaign, the first thing we do in the first month, maybe over the first 10 to 14 days, is a full site audit. We use software, of course, like Screaming Frog, for example, Ahrefs and other things. And then we also manually run this report. We have like 147-point checklist we run through, and we're looking at everything from mobile speed and optimization and page speed, all through to duplicate titles, length of titles, missing meta descriptions, everything. So we always start with, as you said, a full audit. Off the back of the full audit, we then run our optimization reports, which we call TPOs, or target page optimization. We look at each individual page and we'll optimize each individual page, recommendations for content and everything else. Within that first month, we're also looking at GMB. We're looking at their content strategy, social media if they have it. So the first month really is about setting the campaign up. And within that first month, we're also then prepping and preparing for the outreach we're going to do. What sort of sites are we going to contact for this client? What sort of links do we need? What do their competitors have that maybe we could get a link on as well? And what sort of link profile works for their industry and their niche and their keywords? So definitely the first month, very important, is the setup. There's no point going out there and just building links. There's no point just doing content. There's no point just doing an audit. It's the three things together that's going to make the difference.
Absolutely. Also, when you do this audit, how do you plan the site structure? So what I'm trying to say is, how do you plan, domain slash page versus domain slash, XYZ slash page? So what are the best steps?
It's difficult to give one rule for everything, because we deal with clients that are just lead based or inquiry based, and then you have e-commerce where they're trying to sell something. We will look at the URL structure. If possible, we want to try and avoid changing too much, especially if it's an aged site and it's been there a long time and Google already likes it. We don't want to mess around too much with URL changes and redirects and things like that. But if we do need to make a change, we just want to make sure it makes sense. Obviously you've got the domain name, then we're going to look at category, subcategory, and then product, for example. And they will be as descriptive as possible, but without obviously keyword stuffing.
Would you also look at maybe the top 10 URL structures ranking for that, or would you just
the guys would have a look at that, but it's one of those things. Same with the links, same with the content. We're looking at, if you just look at one thing, it's not necessarily that one thing that's making a difference. Now, if 8 out of 10 on the first page have a certain type of URL structure, and that makes sense to us, then we may recommend that we do something similar. But if we're seeing different URL structures, we're not just going to look at one thing and say, these guys are number one, we have to copy their URL structure, because their URL structure might not be amazing. It could be everything else that's making them rank. So we are mindful about what other people are doing and competitors are doing, but we won't look at one thing in isolation and say we have to do that. We kind of try and look at the overall picture. And also it comes down to how easy it will be to make those changes. If they've got a developer, great. If they've had a bespoke website, they don't have a developer. Sometimes you don't want to mess too much, because you fix something here, you break something there. It can get messy sometimes.
Yeah. So my other question would be, similar for the content. So when, you plan content for an existing page or a new page, would you, use some softwares like Surfer and see how the top 10 guys are doing it? What would your strategy be for planning the content?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, we use software, but you can't beat someone human, a manual kind of view on things. So, first thing we'd start with is the keywords. We're trying to understand the keywords that are relevant to that business. We group them, we cluster them, we see what sort of topics we need to be talking about. From those keywords, we'd be looking at Google and seeing what sites rank. We would look at the top 10, and we might find that 7 blog posts rank, a homepage rank, and 2 inner pages rank. So that would tell us that if we want to rank for this, we're probably more likely got to focus those keywords on a blog post compared to an inner page. So that, we'd follow a very similar process to the URL structure with the content. What content do we need to produce that Google is already rewarding with a high ranking? Again, though, taking everything else into context. If there's 7 blog posts on page 1, but that's because their domains are really strong, it might not necessarily mean that Google wants to rank a blog post. It just might mean that the domain authority, if you like, is pushing that higher than it should be. So we try and take everything into account when we look at it.
Absolutely. Now, coming back to links,
Okay, cool.
how do you see? I mean, the value of low DA sites like DA10, DA20. Do they have any SEO value?
Um, okay, so at Evo Digital, we we build links and we base them on a criteria of DAs. Okay, we do that because that's what agencies want. Agencies want to know that, okay, I'm getting a DA20 or above, or a DA30 or above, or a DA50. Personally, it's all about the theme and the relevancy. The way I've always approached link building is, if you look at site A and site A links to site B, and there's a reason that site A links to site B, that's a good link. You know, if I've got a, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but if I've got a website that's selling insurance, and a stay-at-home mum is blogging, and she normally blogs about her cats and her dogs, then one of her articles is, my cat got sick but luckily I managed to find some good insurance here. Someone might look at that and say, oh, it's a link from a blog about cats and dogs. It's not relevant. But I would look at it and say, well, that's a genuine link. So I normally would focus on the relevancy and the reason that site A links to site B. In the industry, we're using DA from Moz. We're using the Ahrefs scores. We're using the ones from Majestic as a way to kind of rate and score the sites, which we believe is similar to how Google might look at it. But at the end of the day, if there's a reason for site A to link to site B, then that should be a good, valid link. Now, you would hope that the more metrics, the higher the metrics the site has, the better it will perform, but it's still going to come down to relevancy. I think Google is definitely smart enough now to know, okay, you've got a link from a DA40, but it's completely irrelevant. The site's just been created for link building, and it doesn't matter if it's DA40, 100 or 10, if you see what I mean.
No, absolutely, absolutely. The reason I asked this question was the same what you said, I mean, as an agency, you need to have DA10, DA20, but at the end of the day, it is a Moz parameter. You have to look at the overall quality. So, maybe it's time for us to maybe change or add new parameters, maybe relevancy or, I mean,
the problem with relevancy is difficult, isn't it? 'Cause it's quite subjective. I mean, the example I gave there, if someone was just looking at a report and the report said it's a dog and cat or a pet blog, you'd be like, well, why is that relevant? But so it can be subjective. It's probably very difficult. I know Majestic have the related kind of categories that they put in.
topical relevancy.
That's it. Topical relevancy. That's the one. So that helps a bit. At the end of the day, I mean, if the metrics are correct, you'd want links from higher metric sites. But at the end of the day, it does come back to what's natural. And that's what we try and do with our outreach. It's not natural for a site to only get links from DA40 and above. It should be impossible. Because if someone has found your site naturally, they will link to you, whether they've got a DA1 or a DA100. It's similar with link velocity. With link velocity, you can't say you can build 10 links a month. With link velocity, the higher your site appears, naturally, the more links it gets. And so velocity changes, relevancy changes, metrics change. It's all about, I mean, the main thing we focus on, apart from the relevancy, is we just look at natural language linking. And
absolutely.
we do that. Yeah, so we do that by, we understand the keywords we want to rank for. We make sure the content is relevant to the keywords we want to rank for, but we won't link exact. We will use a sentence, half a sentence, a phrase, a word next to a word. We'll link to the URL. We'll use the brand. And it's just about thinking about how normal people would link. If you read an article on the BBC, CNN, Sky, you look at how they link internally to their other articles. Sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's half a sentence. It's just trying to create what is natural that normally people would link. If you're going to go out and ask people for links, which the reality is, if you don't do that, you're going to struggle to rank unless you're a massive brand. So we're not technically supposed to ask for people to link to us. But if we're providing value and they agree to link with us, there's nothing, nothing, it's okay. but we want to then make sure they link to us in a way that someone would normally link to us.
No, absolutely. And I think that is one, thing where a lot of people get confused because, I think it's, even the internal linking, compared to external linking. So, internal linking, you can have a lot of direct anchor text and keywords linking to each other, but when it comes to external link, link building, let's say a guest post, if it's more natural, even if it's a long tail keyword, but if it is natural in the content, it's still giving you, the juice you want rather than, just forcing the keyword into it and it looking like a red flag to Google anyways. So I think you're absolutely right. And
And that's it.
also what you said about like a blog talking about cats, I mean, I think we call it shoulder niches, but exactly, like maybe family law, there might be, or like like there might be an HR site and it might have an article related to work injury law and some things like that. So absolutely.
Exactly. So you've got to look at the page, not necessarily the site. We used to call them, I think, we used to call them like hybrid niches or something. So you've got the primary niche of the site, which in this case was dogs and cats and pets. But within that, they might talk about health and they might talk about insurance. They might talk about finance for the cost of cats and traveling with cats. And then it opens up these different opportunities. So don't just get caught up on the topic of the main site or the homepage. Think about what else they're talking about, because that is how people link naturally.
I think that's what you actually mean by, genuine manual outreach. And that's where the value lies.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing when we do, I mean, again, it depends what agency's looking for. Some will be very fixated on the metrics. Others will be fixated on the niche. If we do the metrics, we always make sure the niche and the relevancy is there as well. But if when we work for our own individual clients, where we have more control, it's very much the relevancy. Is there a reason for site A to link to site B? Will it add value? And if it doesn't add, and what sort of value will it add? And if it adds this or this, we're still going to go for it if it's a good reason to link.
Right. So my other question would be niche edit versus content placements.
Okay, so again, if you have the opportunity to get either and then make sense, then I would go for them. I mean, I still get emails. I had one last week from a company who has a rank software, and they emailed me about a blog post we wrote a few months ago, and we mentioned a few ranking software, and they said, oh, Reddit, they're our competitors. We've just launched this. It would be great if you could include us. That then becomes an edit, doesn't it, to our previous post. Now, if I go in and do it, I am kind of signing off that is a site I want to link to. So that's going to add value. And there's two sides. You've got the fresh content, and then you've got the update to an old content. Depends when Google crawls that post as to how quickly it picks up the link. But then on the flip side, you've got, if it's been around for a while, you might have links to the page which will help the authority. On the other hand, you've got this new piece of content. Hopefully it gets crawled quickly and picked up, but it is still new and fresh. And then how long until Google crawls it again and picks up the additional signals? So back to the question, I wouldn't rate either of them differently. For me, they're a type of link that if it adds value, I want to try and get.
Right. And what is your, reply and acceptance rate to outreach emails?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know the answer, but I do know that it's not as high as everyone would like, because you are emailing a lot of people cold. It depends how you do it. I mean, if you tie in a bit of social media and you do try and talk about sites that, if you do try and talk about articles they've written and posts that they've written that are good, then that will help. But generally, it's lower than most people would think. We speak to clients, they think, well, you send 10 emails, you get 5 links. It doesn't work that way. It is a numbers game. You can improve that. And once you've built a relationship, you can utilize it for a later period of time, for other clients, for example. So that's it, really. I mean, like with anything in life, it's about building relationships. And if you can get a good relationships that you can build, You can build a decent relationship. You can utilize that later on.
Right. So any other strategy you use apart from just sending out emails?
Sometimes we'll do some social media outreach. We might do it via LinkedIn, for example. If we can't do an email, yeah, we might look at where they are on Twitter and things like that and try and do it that way.
All right. So I think my next follow-up question would be, a question a lot of people don't ask, but everybody knows about it, but people just don't ask. What are your thoughts on, paying a fee to the bloggers you have approached?
Okay, so good question. Everyone asks that. Obviously, where possible, we would try and avoid having to pay a blogger. At the same time, we are asking somebody to take out half an hour or an hour of their time to check the content that we've written, make sure that it fits in with their audience, that their audience is going to like it. We're going to expect them to make changes to it if they think it's not exactly what their audience wants. We're going to ask them to take time to make sure the links are formatted, the content's formatted, the images are added. We're going to ask them, they're going to upload it, share it with their social media profiles, etc. So when you think about that, sometimes you understand why bloggers would ask for some compensation to do it. I wouldn't take that decision myself. That would be a decision I would make with a partner or a client as to whether it was valuable. And sometimes that will be something we do and ask for a no follow. We ask for a no follow because we don't want to have a problem with Google, but we still believe that there's value in the link for traffic and visibility and brand awareness. So it's not really a black and white question. If you say, no, I never pay, or yes, I always pay, it's not. It all comes down to the circumstances and what you want out of that link. And sometimes what you want from a link is not all about Google and ranking. Sometimes it is the brand awareness, the traffic.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's not about just paying money, which is bad. I mean, at the end of the day, they are taking out time, even if, obviously anybody would not want to link to a site which is not providing value. So definitely you are providing value. That's why they are linking to you. But, I mean, if they are
Yeah, no,
taking out
exactly.
time, I don't think there's anything wrong in compensating them. Right, right. So, Stuart, I mean, my next question would be, what is the biggest challenge you wish could be automated or could be less time consuming in your outreach process?
Well, it's the biggest challenge, and probably what could be less time consuming, is probably the part that can't be automated. I mean, we've got software that will, scrape Google, will find blogs, it will find contact details. We've already got that. We've got software where you can automate the sending of email and stuff like that. All of that exists. What you don't have is someone looking manually at a site and deciding whether site A should link to site B and the relevancy. So, unfortunately, the time-consuming part of real outreach it's that evaluation. And sometimes you can do that evaluation later on in the process. So you could use the tools to automate the metrics and the topical relevancy from Majestic and the social stuff and other things, yeah? But then you could then send the emails out. And then when you get a first response, is at that point you could potentially do the manual review, and that would save you a bit of time. But you still need the manual review. That's the bit you can't really automate. You can
Right.
outsource it, obviously, you could use, but then you've got to make sure they're trained, they know exactly what they're doing, and you still potentially have got to QC that, or you're wasting time on content creation and ideas that you can't use.
Right, right. So talking about links and content,
Yeah,
what metrics should be used to measure the success of content marketing effort?
yeah. I mean, it will depend on what your initial goals were. Are your initial goals traffic to the content piece? Is your initial goal sharing, like shares? Or is your initial goal, or is your initial goal ranking and keywords? And then depending on what the initial goals are, that would determine how we would rate it. So, if we make a blog post, want to get focus on a piece that we want to be very shareable on social media, Then we would look at who shared it and things like that.
Right, right. So, what are the best practices to create an editorial calendar for content marketing?
Best practices. I think going back to what we talked about with the site audit and what we talked about for URL structure and content. We talked earlier about looking at what competitors are doing. It would be similar for the content calendar. You know, we want to have a look at what our competitors are doing, maybe look at the top 10, top 5, see how frequently they're publishing. Are they getting the likes and the shares on social? Are they getting the visibility on Google? How many times do they post? What do they post about? Once you understand that, you would take that, you'd look at, try and gauge the rough frequency that they might be posting at, and then you create your calendar around that. You wouldn't necessarily come up with the title of an article immediately, but you might say, look, every Monday we're going to post news about the industry. Every Wednesday we're going to post a tip or a guide. Every Friday we might talk about a service that we provide, for example. So again, I think it does come down to individual businesses and individual agencies on how they do it. But if you do look at what other people are doing and what you believe is working, you can kind of tailor it around that. And then we would just use for ourselves, we'd come up with the ideas, we'd plan that, 4 to 8 weeks in advance with the type of posts. And then we'd be looking to actually generate the titles a couple of weeks before we want to post, which gives us, 5-6 days to create the content, edit it, tidy it up and get it published.
Right, right. Also, how do you choose the best content type for a particular page? So, for example, how do you decide a particular page has to be an infographic?
Probably back to the earlier question where we have a look at keywords and we'll see what's ranking. So if we find that for a keyword that we want to rank, a client wants to rank for, it's mainly infographics, then we're going to have to produce an infographic as a content piece. If it's mainly blog posts, we're going to have to create a blog post. If it's a guide or ebooks, we're going to have to create a guide or an ebook.
Right, right. So what is your lead gen strategy as a link building agency?
Our own lead gen strategy. Probably, just like most agencies, probably our lead gen is not as good as it should be for a digital marketing agency. I think I speak to a lot of agency owners and everyone puts their hands up and says, you know what, we do so much for the clients that we kind of neglect what we do. We have a big focus on, obviously, organic rankings. We look at lead magnets through how-to guides or ebooks. We offer like a free site audit, which is automated to get people's details. We don't do so much on Google Ads at the moment because the cost per click is quite high and it's quite competitive for our industry. But we do utilize Facebook and target people based on interest instead, but drive the traffic to a landing page or a lead magnet. And obviously all we want from the lead magnet is to give someone value enough that they're willing to give us an email address. And that email address will go into an email marketing series to nurture them, to bring them closer to approaching us to talk to us about what we do.
Right, right. So basically, promoting value content rather than the, direct sales pitch on Google AdWords.
Yes. Yeah. So we're looking at Facebook and organic to drive people to a value proposition where they say, we have a problem, it looks like you have the solution, we'll give you our details if you give us the solution, and then that gets them into our marketing series to try and nurture them into a warmer lead.
Right, right. Since voice is picking up so fast, how do you optimize your content for voice search?
Oh, very good question. Very similar to how we deal with the Q&A in Google. So, we put some keywords into Google, we put some questions into Google. We then look at within Google, people also ask. We look at the questions people are asking. We also look at Moz. We use Moz because they surface a lot of questions in their keyword tool, for example. We then group those questions into related topics, if you like, that we can create content and blog posts around. And our H1s and H2s will be around the questions, and then the paragraphs will be around answering those. And we're trying to then rank for the Q&A, but we're then also trying to match in what people will be asking naturally for within their phone. You know, so if I was searching in Google manually and typing, I might type in something like dentist near me or dentist on my phone, and the locality will help me. If I was doing a voice search, I would probably be, hey Siri, is there a dentist near me? Where's the nearest dentist? Even though I can say dentist near me, you have more of a conversation. And it's generally, a lot of it's question based. So we just work off the Q&A, the knowledge graph, and just trying to create the questions that might surface up on what people ask for natural, you know, language.
Right, right. So my last question, Stuart, would be, I mean, you know, any major trends uh, to look out as far as link building is concerned?
Um, um, since Penguin, I'm assuming a lot of people know about Penguin, but since Penguin, link building has kind of, that was the big shift I think that I saw in link building. Before that, people were like, how many links can I get? I want this keyword only. Can you build me 10, 20, 100,000? I don't care where they're from. I just want links. Penguin shifted a lot of people's mentality to what we've been talking about, which is the relevancy, the frequency, and other things. Since then, I haven't seen a big major, personally, like a big major shift. There are different tactics that people use for links, but the overall strategy is the same. It's just trying to get links that Google will like, that will be natural and add value and are relevant. So there, you know, there are tactics. You see people post case studies about, well, I tried this outreach strategy and I got a 10% uplift in conversions. Great, that's a tactic. It's not the overall strategy. The overall strategy is still the same. And some of them work and then they get bled to death. I mean, I obviously I own 3 agencies that all deal with SEO, and I probably get 10, 20, 30 emails a day from people pitching me link building and asking for a link. So it's quite flooded. You know, you do have to think sometimes a bit creatively about your content, about can you reach out on social media and LinkedIn instead, but nothing that like a big shift in change, if that makes sense. If that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think the main thing to look out is for quality content. You know, even if, let's say, you're creating a power page on your own website, if you actually invest time, because in a guest post, you're creating content for a third-party site and getting linked to it. You know, if you're creating content for your own site, it's quality. You invest time. You know, Google will appreciate it because then you can get multiple link backs. So I think same would hold true.
Yeah, so investing in good quality content that hopefully is evergreen, either very topical now or evergreen content that will last for a while, will allow you to more cost effective for your link building. So you're not creating new content all the time. If you're reaching out to good sites, you can't get away with bad content or poor content anyway. So if you're reaching out to good sites, you're going to have decent content as well. Yeah, I mean, back again, Penguin, pre-Penguin, people would use software to spin content, get links done, and that's like, it's a big no-no now. Maybe you'll get a benefit for a short period of time, and the way Penguin works now, it will just ignore them completely. Or if you do it too much, you're going to get a manual review.
No, absolutely. I mean, investing right from your first outreach email, like you said, I mean, people are getting hundreds of emails every day. That email, that subject line has to stand out. So I think it's time agencies and clients, agencies understand it, but I think clients need to understand that quality link, cost money because they cost time. A lot of time is invested by a quality resource than hiring, a robo type data entry guy who is just doing automated outreach.
Unfortunately, though, as an industry, not us personally, but as an industry, we haven't exactly helped ourselves with everything that has been done in the past. And you speak to a lot of people and businesses now who say it's easy, it shouldn't cost a lot of money, or you can just do this and get me hundreds of links. And we're in an education process at the moment and trying to make sure people are educated. Google's starting to help us. They've got videos that they start doing now about SEO and SEO, how to choose an SEO company. That is good because it's coming from Google. But yeah, too much in the past maybe is coming back to haunt a lot of people.
Right, right. Well, Stuart, thank you for your time. I
Yeah, no,
know,
it's cool.
we don't have much time today, but I think, next time we'll try to get you again, maybe do, a mastermind on link building.
Yeah,
Uh,
cool.
you
I
know,
look forward to that.
Thank you
That'd be
so much,
great.
man. You
Yeah,
take
thank you.
care and have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good day.
You too.